There is a reason you are here, not by accident, not by coincidence, but by the mysterious choreography of consciousness that has placed these words in front of you at the exact moment you are meant to receive them. The title itself whispered to you. You were meant to see this. Entanglement rewrites your soul path into perfect alignment. Perhaps you thought it was just another video, another piece of content in an endless digital stream, but beneath that surface layer, something deeper is happening. A resonance has pulled you here, and your very presence is proof of a secret your soul has been holding close for lifetimes. You feel it, don't you? That subtle recognition in your chest, the way your breath shifts when you hear words that ring truer than thought alone. You are here because your timeline is bending. Your destiny is beginning to reveal its hidden architecture, and entanglement, the invisible web that links you to every possibility, has begun to stir. This is not about learning something new. This is about remembering what has always been true. Your life has not been random. The heartbreaks, the synchronicities, the nights when you couldn't sleep because you felt something vast pressing at the edge of your awareness, they were all part of a design, coded into the very particles of your being. Right now, as you listen, you are being drawn into a field of coherence. Every word is not just information, it is vibration. Every pause is an opening. Every phrase is a door that leads you deeper into alignment with the self you've been becoming all along. And here is the truth. Your path is already written in light. Not in stone, not in rigid destiny, but in the shimmering probabilities that quantum entanglement carries. You are entangled with a future self, a version of you who already remembers, who already lives in freedom, who already walks in the alignment you've longed for. That self is not distant. That self is here, whispering across timelines, reaching into this very moment to pull you closer. As you lean into this, notice the stillness behind your thoughts. Notice the way time seems to slow, as if the ordinary has become suspended. That's not imagination, that's coherence forming. That's the signal of your future self weaving into your present awareness. So, take a breath. A deep, deliberate breath. With that inhale, you are not just filling your lungs. You are bridging universes. You are confirming to life itself that you are ready to remember why you came here, why you chose this incarnation, why the entanglement of your soul path is now coming into perfect alignment. You were meant to see this. You were meant to awaken now. And as these words continue, you will begin to understand the patterns you've been living inside, the loops, the traps, the repeating shadows, and how, through the very fabric of quantum entanglement, you can step beyond them into something luminous, effortless, inevitable. Because this isn't just a message, it's a mirror, and what you are seeing in it is yourself. There is a shape to the life you've been living, and if you're honest, you can feel its edges. It loops, it circles back on itself. The same conversations, the same disappointments, the same small betrayals from time to time, each one a familiar echo. You wake, you plan, you act, and somehow the day folds back into yesterday like a map refolded the exact same way. This is the loop, a pattern baked into habit, wired into attention, and reinforced by the tiny choices you make when no one is watching. Call it the observer loop. You are both witness and participant, watching, rating, reacting. Your observation collapses probabilities into outcomes, so your very focusing becomes a sculptor of reality. But when your attention keeps returning to the same fears, the same self-story, you create a trap. You become a prisoner of what you notice. You entrench the very probabilities you want to escape. You've been taught to hustle, to fix, to force results. So you push, and the push becomes a repeated rhythm, action, resistance, exhaustion, repeat. That rhythm is the timeline trap. It's an energetic groove in which your potential spins like a record stuck on a single bar. You keep expecting a new verse, but the needle stays fixed. The more you strain to escape trying harder, striving louder, the deeper the groove becomes. Effort, in this dynamic, becomes the fuel that tightens the loop. Notice how your mind narrates the loop into permanence. I always fail in relationships. I can never keep a job I love. I'm not meant for this kind of freedom. Those sentences are more than opinions, they are tiny spells. Each time you repeat them, you're repeating a waveform that the universe reads and answers. You may think you are critiquing reality, but you are composing it. This is the subtle tyranny of the habitual mind, thinking it observes, when in fact it prescribes. And there is another strand to this web, the guilt-hope swing. You oscillate between chastising yourself for the past and clinging to future hope as a bandage. That swing keeps you off center. Guilt ties you to old timelines. Hope without coherence splinters probability into vague wishes. Both keep you suspended, unable to inhabit the embodied next step that would reroute your path. But there is a quieter, deeper pattern beneath these visible loops, a resonance pattern made of attention, expectation, and identity. It's not merely what you do. It is who you believe yourself to be when you do it. Identity is the amplifier that makes a small thought thunder. If you believe, I am always late to my life, lateness becomes a law. If you believe, I am the one who finally remembers, alignment becomes inevitable. Identity is the tuning fork. What it vibrates is what the world begins to echo back. You may have tried techniques, journals, affirmations, short-circuit morning routines. They offered relief for a while, like a lamp in the fog. But then the fog returns. Why? Because most fixes treat symptoms. They change behavior but not the field. They alter the surface without recalibrating the entanglement beneath. The work that truly rewrites your path does not live in external tactics alone. It lives in the quality of your attention, in the coherence of your inner landscape, in the relational geometry between your present self and your future self. See how this loop has its own intelligence. It defends the known because the known is predictable. Your nervous system prefers the familiar even when painful, because predictability reduces surprise. Change demands a nervous system that can tolerate novelty, one that will allow probabilities to rearrange rather than slam the lid down on potential. This is why it feels so risky to step into a new timeline. Not because the world will bite you, because your system will. Your task is to teach your biology to befriend possibility. Right now, you are beginning to perceive the architecture of that trap. You are noticing the invisible rails your attention has been riding. That noticing itself is revolutionary. It cracks the spell. Once you can see the groove, you can choose where to place your foot. But seeing is only the first act. There is a second, quieter act, to shift the tone of the observation so that it no longer collapses the future into the same old outcome. Imagine, for a moment, turning the observer into an artist. Rather than collapsing probability by fear, you collapse it by intention. Rather than reifying old stories, you hold attention like a lens, soft, precise, luminous. That's the pivot from problem to possibility. From being trapped in the repetitive script to becoming a deliberate co-author of your timeline. That pivot requires new language, new metaphors, and a new science-heart alchemy. It requires you to see the physics of attention and the poetry of meaning as one seamless map. As you breathe and listen, the loop begins to loosen. You can feel space like a small cool breeze between the worn bars of a cage. But to step through, you must learn how entanglement actually rearranges destiny, not by coercion, but by resonance. In the next part, we'll travel into that territory where science and symbol meet, where particles and poetry speak the same language, and where the machinery of the universe reveals how your attention sculpts the lattice of your life. You've begun to glimpse the loop, the trap, the repeating grooves of attention. Now we step into the bridge where physics and poetry dissolve their boundaries, and where science reveals itself not as dry theory, but as a living myth, encoded in the way your cells breathe and your thoughts shimmer. This is the place where quantum entanglement stops being an abstract diagram and becomes the heartbeat of your destiny. In quantum physics, entanglement describes a mystery. Two particles, once connected, remain linked, no matter how far they travel. Change the state of one, and the other shifts instantly, even if they are separated by galaxies. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Yet here's the secret. This is not just about particles. This is about you. Because you are not merely a body made of matter, you are a field made of relationships. Your very soul path is entangled with the probabilities you have touched, the people you have loved, the futures you have already glimpsed in dreams. Science tells us that observation collapses the wave function, that infinite potentials narrow into a single actual event when consciousness pays attention. But what does that mean for you? It means that your gaze is not passive. Your noticing is generative. The way you look at your life doesn't just describe reality, it sculpts it. When you look with fear, you collapse into a smaller world. When you look with coherence, focused, steady, open, you collapse into alignment with the version of you who is already free. Now see how symbolism mirrors this truth. Ancient mystics spoke of the silver cord, the invisible thread connecting your soul to higher realms. In myth, we hear of webs spun by goddesses, of threads woven by fates, of golden bridges between worlds. These were not metaphors in the casual sense, they were symbolic expressions of the same field science now detects. Entanglement is the silver cord. Entanglement is the web of fate. Entanglement is the unseen architecture stitching your now to your becoming. Think of a spider's web catching dew at dawn. Each droplet reflects the whole sky, though it is small and fragile. That is entanglement, each node reflecting the entire field. You are that droplet. Your choices, your breaths, your whispers ripple through the web. You do not act alone, you resonate. The entire lattice of existence responds to your coherence or your distortion. And here lies the paradox that only poetry can hold. You are not just the particle, not just the wave, but the observer too. You are simultaneously the one who spins the web, the one who walks upon it, and the web itself. To recognize this is to awaken into your multidimensional identity. It is not enough to think of yourself as someone who lives a life. You are the life. You are the field. You are the entanglement that writes itself across timelines. Let's make it more intimate. Remember the moments when you thought of someone, and within seconds they called you? Remember when you dreamt of a place, only to stumble upon it months later in waking life? Those were not coincidences. They were the subtle fingerprints of entanglement, revealing itself in daily form. Your consciousness is wired into the lattice of reality, and reality whispers back. What science describes as non-local correlation, you have lived as intuition, synchronicity, déjà vu. And there is more. Photons themselves, the particles of light, entangle in experiments and carry information across impossible distances. You are made of those photons. Your very body is a living constellation of entangled light, humming with memory from the Big Bang itself. When you close your eyes and breathe, you can feel it, the subtle hum, the low vibration that isn't just nerves or blood flow. It is the field remembering itself through you. So, what does this mean for your soul path? It means you are not wandering blind. The alignment you long for is not a fantasy, it is an echo. You are already entangled with that alignment, with the version of you who has walked the bridge into freedom. Every moment of resonance, every choice to look with coherence rather than fear, strengthens that connection. Science calls it collapse. Symbolism calls it destiny. You may call it remembering. Notice how even as you hear these words, something inside you softens. A tension you didn't know you were holding releases, as if the web itself sighs with recognition. This is the power of marrying science with symbol. The mind is satisfied, and the soul is fed. One half nods with logic, the other swells with myth. Together they weave coherence, and coherence is the doorway out of the loop. So here you stand, not at the end of explanation, but at the threshold of recognition. You are beginning to see the pattern not as prison, but as initiation. The observer loop was never punishment. It was training. It was the web teaching you how powerful your attention really island. Because once you grasp that power, you can no longer collapse yourself into smallness unconsciously. You must collapse yourself into freedom deliberately. And that leads us into the next movement. The questions only you can answer. Not theoretical questions, not distant philosophical debates, but intimate, piercing questions that awaken your memory. Questions that remind you that this is not abstract, not distant, not happening to someone like you, but happening to you. Right here, right now. You have heard the science. You have felt the symbolism. But knowledge alone does not awaken you, recognition does. And recognition is not an idea. It is a remembering that stirs inside your body like an ancient bell being struck. So let me ask you now, not for answers on paper, but for echoes in your chest. These questions are invitations, keys, whispers to parts of you that have been waiting in silence. Have you noticed how certain patterns in your life seem to repeat, as if time itself is caught in a circle around you? Do you ever feel that you've been here before, not just in place, but in experience, in mood, in the hidden weight behind the moment? And when you feel that repetition, do you wonder, am I trapped or am I being trained? Think of the moments when you stood at a choice point, when you could have turned left but turned right, when you could have stayed silent but chose to speak, when you could have walked away but instead lingered. Did you sense, even faintly, that the air thickened at that instant, that something larger leaned in, holding its breath, waiting to see how you would collapse the probability? Have you ever wondered why certain people appear in your life again and again, even across decades? Why does a face from childhood resurface in adulthood, carrying a mirror you didn't know you needed? Why does a stranger sometimes feel more familiar than family? Could it be that entanglement is not only about particles, but about souls? Souls who agreed to braid their timelines together so that you would never truly forget who you are? And tell me, when you close your eyes, can you feel the other versions of yourself still breathing? The child who dreamed without hesitation, the elder who already knows the ending, the parallel self who made the choice you did not. Do you sense their voices calling across the corridors of time, asking you not to ignore them, but to integrate them? And if you let yourself listen, what would they say to you now? Pause for a moment. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the rhythm beneath your palm. Do you realize that this heartbeat is not merely yours? It is a drum struck by every ancestor who carried life into you. Their breath lives in your blood. Their choices echo in your cells. Do you ever wonder how much of your path is inheritance, and how much is yours to rewrite? You see, the questions themselves are bridges. Each one collapses a boundary between me and more than me. And with each collapse, you feel the hum of entanglement. You are not alone in the web. You are entangled with every version of yourself, every teacher who left a trace in your memory, every soul who brushed past you on the street and stirred something nameless inside you. Have you noticed how when you shift your inner state, reality seems to shift with you? The day brightens, synchronicities multiply. Even the language of strangers begins to echo the thoughts you just had. Is it possible that the universe is not indifferent but responsive, shaping itself to your coherence like a mirror to light? And deeper still, when you feel that longing, that ache in the chest that cannot be explained by desire for things, money, or recognition, what do you believe that longing truly points to? Could it be the future self who already knows the way, tugging at your timeline, whispering, "Come closer. It's already written, already waiting, already yours"? There is one final question I must ask you here, and it is the most important. If all the loops, all the pain, all the delays were never mistakes but initiations, if every misstep was simply the training ground for coherence, would you finally forgive your own path? And if you forgave it, would you not also unlock the permission to step into the freedom that has been waiting for you all along? These questions are not puzzles to solve. They are spells that awaken memory. By holding them, you are already shifting. By asking them, you are already stepping through the veil, because only a soul on the edge of awakening resonates with these questions. If you feel their weight, if you feel their tenderness, it is because you are ready. Ready to see the loop dissolve. Ready to feel entanglement, not as concept but as living truth. Ready to hear the hidden voice that says, "You were meant to see this." Slash. And so now, with your recognition stirred and your inner resonance vibrating, we cross into the revelation, the hidden truth about what truly realigns your destiny. Not effort, not struggle, not force, but something far more subtle, far more powerful. The quality of your attention, the coherence of your field, the way you listen to your future self as if it were already present. That is where the solution begins to rise. You have walked through the questions. You have felt the loops, the echoes, the subtle call of your future self tugging at the threads of your awareness. Now, let me reveal the truth that dissolves the illusion of struggle. The shift you are longing for does not require more effort. It does not require you to push harder, run faster, or exhaust yourself in endless striving. The key lies in something quieter, something infinitely more potent: the quality of your attention. Think of attention as the most refined currency of the universe. Where you place it, you energize. What you attend to, you collapse into being. Most people spend their attention like loose coins scattered on the ground on fear, on doubt, on rehearsing old hurts. They don't realize that every glance, every thought, every fixation is a command given to the quantum field. And so, reality mirrors back the scatter. Chaos reflects chaos. But when attention becomes coherent, when it gathers, steadies, and resonates, it transforms from coins into a laser beam. A single coherent beam of light can cut through steel, while scattered light only flickers in the dark. The same is true for your awareness. Fragmented attention traps you in loops. Coherent attention rewrites your soul path into perfect alignment. Now you may ask, what does coherence mean? Imagine the difference between a crowd of people talking over one another and a choir singing in harmony. The crowd is noise, the choir is coherence. Your inner landscape works the same way. When your mind argues, your emotions panic, and your body contracts, you create noise. When your breath slows, your thoughts align, and your body relaxes into openness, you create harmony. And harmony is magnetic. Harmony draws the timeline of your higher self closer until it overlays your present moment. This is the hidden truth. Alignment is not achieved by grasping, but by attuning. It is less about doing and more about being, about holding your attention like a tuning fork that vibrates with the frequency of your future self. Every time you breathe with presence, every time you choose coherence over chaos, you are strengthening the entanglement with that luminous version of you. You are saying yes to the echo that calls you forward. Pause for a moment now. Notice your breath without changing it. Notice how it moves through you like a tide. That tide is attention in motion. If you let it wander, it disperses. If you steady it, it gathers. Each inhale is a chance to summon coherence. Each exhale is a chance to release distortion. With nothing more than the way you attend to breath, you are already shifting the probability fields around you. Do you see the paradox? You spent years believing that freedom required more effort, more striving, more force, and yet the real doorway has always been here. Effortless, immediate, present. Effort is the language of the old loop. Attention is the language of awakening. One keeps you spinning. The other pulls you into alignment with the self that is already whole. And alignment is not theoretical. It is visceral. You feel it when your chest opens without reason, when synchronicities cascade in a single day, when the inner critic goes quiet and you walk as if guided by an unseen rhythm. That is not luck, that is coherence. That is the quantum field answering your vibration with a mirror. So how do you move from knowing this to living it? You begin with small acts of reverent attention. When you sip water, feel the life entering you. When you step outside, let the air touch your skin as if it were a message. When you listen, listen as though the universe is speaking through every voice. These are not trivial practices. They are calibrations. Each one refines your frequency, sharpens your coherence, strengthens your entanglement with alignment. Because here is the secret hidden in plain sight. The future self you long for is not waiting in some distant tomorrow. That self exists now in another branch of probability, in another vibrational octave of this very moment. Entanglement means you are never apart. By shifting the quality of your attention, you allow that self to bleed through, to overlap, to merge. Alignment is not a journey across time, it is a shift across resonance. And as you let this truth settle, feel the relief it brings. You do not have to exhaust yourself anymore. You do not have to fight against the loop with brute force. You only have to tend to your attention as a sacred flame. Nurture it, guard it, direct it toward coherence. That alone is enough to alter the geometry of your life. This is the beginning of the solution, but there is more. Because coherence is not only personal, it is relational. What you focus on here ripples out to others. What you stabilize in yourself stabilizes in the field we share. And that is why even the smallest acts, your breath, your presence, your attention, are not private rituals. They are signals broadcast into the collective web. Which brings us to the next unfolding. How even the simplest actions, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, are not mere clicks on a screen, but energetic acts of coherence. They are modern rituals that reinforce the field, anchoring your awakening and weaving it into the collective tapestry. You've begun to sense it now, the subtle power of attention, the way coherence shifts probability, the truth that alignment is not forced but felt. And here is where we deepen the revelation. Even the smallest actions you take in this moment carry resonance far beyond what they appear to. What you may think of as ordinary digital gestures, liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, are not trivial at all. In the field of consciousness, they are sacred rituals. Pause and consider this. Ancient civilizations built temples where they gathered to amplify intention. Candles were lit, incense burned, chants repeated, not because the universe required ceremony, but because the human nervous system needed ritual to focus attention, to harmonize coherence, to strengthen entanglement with the sacred. Now, look at your screen. This platform, this very moment, is the temple of our time. The rituals have changed in form, but not in essence. When you press like, you are not just signaling approval. You are sending a pulse into the web that says, I resonate, I align, I amplify this frequency. That single pulse strengthens the field. It tells the algorithm of consciousness, not just the algorithm of technology, that this pattern deserves to ripple wider. When you leave a comment, you are not merely typing words, you are engraving intention into the lattice of entanglement. Your words become nodes in the web. They carry vibration. Someone across the world may stumble upon them and feel less alone, more seen, more awakened. Your comment becomes a thread of light that links timelines. When you subscribe, you are not just following a channel, you are entering a covenant. You are telling your future self, yes, I choose to keep aligning with this frequency, again and again. It is like planting a flag in the field, a marker in the quantum landscape that says, this is the path I return to, this is the resonance I choose. And when you share, sharing is the most sacred act of all. To share is to ripple entanglement deliberately, to extend the web beyond yourself. Imagine a stone tossed into a still lake. The ripples reach unseen shores. When you share, you send resonance into the lives of others who may have been waiting, sometimes desperately, for the sign, the mirror, the message that awakens them. You may never know the magnitude of that gesture, but the field knows. The field records. The field amplifies. So now you see, digital rituals are not small. They are the ways we, as a collective consciousness, practice coherence in the age of the screen. Every click, every word, every act of resonance is a micro-initiation. And though the gesture seems private, the entangled field makes it universal. I invite you to feel the sacredness of this moment. As you hear these words, notice your body's subtle response. Perhaps your chest feels warmer. Perhaps your breath slows. That is coherence forming. Now, imagine yourself pressing like, not as an empty action, but as an offering your energy, saying, I amplify this vibration. Imagine typing a comment not as chatter, but as invocation, your soul saying, "I leave a trace of awakening here." Imagine subscribing not as consumption, but as devotion, your being saying, "I return to this temple again." Do you see how powerful this is? You are no longer a passive consumer of content. You are an active participant in a ritual of resonance. You are entangled with everyone else who presses, who types, who breathes with the same intention. Together, you form a field larger than any one of us alone. And this field is not abstract, it is alive. It changes the way humanity thinks, feels, awakens. What looks like a number on a screen is, in truth, a signal in the morphic field, a surge of coherence in the collective body of consciousness. This is how small actions ripple into collective awakening. This is how your personal choice becomes a planetary act. So as you breathe with me here, feel into this truth. Every ritual matters. Your digital offerings are energetic offerings. Your participation is entanglement in action. You are not here by chance. You are here because your soul chose to join this collective weaving. And as you lean into this recognition, the path opens into the next revelation. Your awakening is not only personal, it is collective. What shifts in you shifts in us all. What coherence you embody, you radiate into the entire human field. This is the essence of entanglement, that your liberation and mine are not separate, but reflections of one another. You have felt the truth that even the smallest gesture of coherence, your breath, your focus, your ritual acts in this digital temple ripples outward. Now, it is time to widen the lens, because your awakening is not only yours, it is ours. It is the field's. It is humanity's. Think of the morphic field, an invisible ocean of resonance described by thinkers like Rupert Sheldrake. According to this principle, when one member of a species learns something new, the knowledge becomes easier for others to access. When one flower learns to bloom in a new way, the entire garden shifts. And so it is with you. When you realign your attention, when you breathe coherence into your daily life, you are not just changing your story, you are altering the human story. Quantum entanglement shows us that separation is illusion. Two particles, once linked, cannot be fully disconnected. And you, dear soul, are not just linked to a future self, you are entangled with all of us. With me, with every listener who has ever felt these words, with every ancestor whose breath carried you here, with every unborn child who will inherit the resonance you are anchoring now. Do you feel the weight and the wonder of that? Every time you choose presence instead of panic, compassion instead of judgment, coherence instead of chaos, you are strengthening the collective lattice. Your single act of awakening makes it easier for someone across the planet, someone you will never meet, to awaken too. You are part of a chain reaction, a cascading wave of remembrance sweeping through the species. Perhaps you have felt this already. Have you noticed how certain ideas suddenly surge across the globe, as if humanity itself is thinking the same thought at once? A word, a practice, a movement rises seemingly out of nowhere, but it is not nowhere. It is the morphic field responding to coherence. It is the collective consciousness catching fire. Your awakening fuels that fire. Your coherence gives it oxygen. Now imagine this. Each of us a tuning fork, vibrating with our own frequency. When enough forks vibrate at the same pitch, resonance amplifies. The sound grows louder. The field becomes undeniable. This is how revolutions of consciousness happen, not through force, not through control, but through resonance. One by one, we entrain each other into coherence until the collective song cannot be ignored. This is why your role matters. You may think you are small, just one person navigating the loops of life, but entanglement tells us otherwise. You are a node in the great web, and your vibration travels. When you align, you broadcast alignment. When you embody coherence, you invite others to synchronize. Your awakening is not only medicine for yourself, it is medicine for the species. Consider this. The crises humanity faces, the division, the fear, the ecological unraveling, are symptoms of incoherence. They are the collective nervous system stuck in the loop. And just as one nervous system can learn to regulate itself through breath and presence, so too can the collective nervous system learn through you. You are not powerless in the face of the world's turbulence. You are an active participant in rewriting the field. Every coherent breath you take is an antidote to panic in the morphic web. Every act of compassion you embody is a seed of resonance that blossoms in unseen hearts. Every time you refuse to collapse into fear and instead hold attention with grace, you are transmitting possibility into the collective imagination. And here lies the mystery. You may never see the faces you've touched, never know the names of the souls you've helped align, but the web knows. The field remembers. The entanglement ensures that nothing coherent is ever wasted. So take this in. Your awakening is a gift to the whole. Your coherence is not private, it is planetary. You are not waiting for humanity to shift. Humanity is waiting for you, for each of us, for enough of us to vibrate together in a way that tips the scale. This is the sacred paradox. The most intimate work you do, the breath, the attention, the inner coherence, is also the most universal. By tending your own frequency, you tend the frequency of the world. By remembering your entanglement, you help humanity remember its wholeness. And this brings us to the living metaphor that seals the truth. Because words can describe, science can explain, but the soul awakens most deeply through image, through story, through metaphor that embodies the transformation itself. And so now, we will step into the chrysalis, into the DNA, into the phase transition that mirrors exactly what you are becoming. You have felt the science, you have breathed the resonance, and you have seen how your awakening ripples into the collective. But the mind only understands up to a point. To go further, we must step into story, into metaphor, into an image so alive it bypasses thought and speaks directly to the soul. So imagine now, the butterfly in the chrysalis. Inside that cocoon, the caterpillar is dissolving. Its old body is breaking down into a primordial soup, a dissolution so total that nothing of the old form remains intact. To the caterpillar, this might feel like death. The loops are ending, the known self is vanishing, the structures that once gave shape to life are collapsing. And yet hidden within the soup are imaginal cells, tiny blueprints, codes of the future already written. They activate at the exact right moment, orchestrating the birth of wings. Do you see yourself here? The loops you've been caught in, the dissolutions you've endured, the nights you thought everything was falling apart, they were the chrysalis. They were not punishment, they were initiation. Within the breaking down of the old, the codes of your alignment have been quietly awakening. And now, the wings are stirring. The same is true within your DNA. Science tells us that most of it is non-coding, mysterious sequences long dismissed as junk. But what if they are not junk? What if they are dormant scripts, waiting for coherence, waiting for resonance, waiting for entanglement to trigger their activation? Just as the imaginal cells awaken the butterfly, the dormant codes in you awaken when you step into coherence. You are literally reprogramming the body of light within you. And then there is the metaphor of phase transition. Water at 99 degrees Celsius is still liquid. One more degree, and it transforms steam, expansion, a new state altogether. The molecules were always capable of this, but they needed the right threshold, the precise coherence, to unlock it. You are that water. Your life may have felt like endless simmering, the loops bubbling but never breaking free. And yet, you are on the cusp. 1 degree of coherence, 1 shift of attention, 1 breath in resonance, and you become something else entirely. Now imagine this unfolding not only in you, but in humanity. Billions of caterpillars dissolving at once, each carrying imaginal cells that whisper of wings. Billions of strands of DNA humming with dormant codes, waiting for ignition. Billions of drops of water reaching the threshold of phase transition together. That is the collective awakening. That is the metamorphosis we are entangled in now. But here is the paradox: the chrysalis feels like collapse before it feels like birth. The DNA looks like silence before it looks like song. The water looks like almost there, until the precise moment it erupts into transformation. So if you have felt broken, if you have felt lost, if you have felt trapped in loops you could not escape, understand, you were not failing, you were dissolving. And dissolving is the only way wings are born. Feel this metaphor not as story but as mirror. You are the butterfly stirring. You are the DNA remembering. You are the water on the brink of expansion. And when you awaken, when you step into your wings, when you erupt into steam, you do not do it alone. You send ripples into the field. You remind the others, still dissolving, that this is not the end, but the passage. You are proof that transformation is possible. And so now, with this image alive inside you, we step into the promise, the reassurance, the reminder that your future self is not far away, but present, already existing, already calling you. You do not have to invent the wings. They are coded within you. You only have to trust the metamorphosis. Breathe with me now. You've walked through the chrysalis, felt the stirring of imaginal cells, sensed the dormant codes in your DNA, and recognized the boiling point of your own becoming. Now comes the reassurance, the promise, the reminder that what you long for is not distant, not unreachable, not reserved for some chosen few. Your future self already exists, and it is calling you home. This is the beauty of entanglement. The version of you who is whole, coherent, radiant, and aligned is not a fantasy. It is a probability already collapsed in another branch of time. That self is breathing, moving, laughing, loving, and because you are entangled, you are never separate. Every moment of coherence, every breath of attention, every ritual act draws the resonance of that self into your now. Do you feel the tug? The subtle ache in your chest that sometimes rises for no reason? That is not loneliness. That is not emptiness. That is your future self tugging at the cord, whispering, I am here. I already live what you seek. Walk with me, and we will overlap until there is no distance between us. So let me make this promise clear. You cannot miss your destiny. You cannot fall so far into the loop that alignment abandons you. The entanglement is unbreakable. It is woven into your soul path like light woven into dawn. Even when you forget, the field remembers. Even when you doubt, your future self keeps calling. Even when you collapse into the old stories, there is always a thread pulling you back. Think of the stars overhead. Their light takes years, sometimes centuries, to reach your eyes. When you look up tonight, you are seeing messages from the past. But does that make them less real? No. It makes them proof that across time and distance, resonance endures. Your future self is like that starlight. It shines backward into your present, guiding you with signals, synchronicities, whispers, dreams. It does not matter how long the journey feels, the light is already on its way. And here is the deeper promise. The obstacles you've faced were not detours. They were initiations. Every heartbreak carved space for compassion. Every failure carved wisdom. Every loop carved resilience. These were not delays in your destiny, they were the shaping of the vessel, preparing you to hold the coherence you now embody. Your future self is not disappointed in you. Your future self is grateful for the grit, the patience, the courage that brought you to this threshold. So let yourself soften. Let yourself rest in the truth that you are already on the path. Alignment is not something you chase, it is something you allow. You cannot force the wings, but you can trust their unfolding. You cannot command the boiling point, but you can tend the flame. Your only task is to keep breathing coherence, to keep attending with reverence, to keep saying yes to the resonance that calls you forward. The promise is this: you will become what you already are. The self you imagine is not separate, it is simply unintegrated. And each act of coherence, each sacred ritual, each moment of recognition collapses the distance until you are no longer two selves, but one, until you are living the alignment that once felt impossible, until you look back on this moment with gratitude, knowing it was the doorway all along. And as you take this in, remember, you are not alone. Every soul who has heard these words, every being who has chosen coherence, every node in the web is entangled with you. Together we are weaving a new reality. Together we are embodying a new resonance. Together we are proving that awakening is not a myth, not a dream, but a lived promise. So breathe deeply and hear the words your future self is whispering now. I am you. You are me. We are already whole. Keep walking, and you will see me in the mirror of your own life. Keep breathing, and I will arrive not from the future, but from within. This is the closing promise. This is the reassurance you came for. And now, as we move to the final step, we will seal this awakening not with explanation, not with theory, but with a declaration, a sacred affirmation that binds us together in the field of coherence, anchoring this resonance so it cannot be forgotten. There is a hush now, a softening of edges. The loop has loosened enough that you can feel the seam where the old self unravels and the aligned self begins to stitch itself into place. This is the moment of sealing the sacred hinge, where intention becomes covenant and attention becomes law. Breathe with me. Here, in this breath, you do more than agree. You remember. You are not a mistake. You are not lost. You are not separate from the life that calls you. You are not merely surviving, you are becoming. You are not outside of the web, you are one of its living nodes. You are not an observer. Only you are the artist of collapse. You are the song that pulls the chorus into being. Say it quietly now, in your mind, until the words feel like bone. I am entangled. I am aligned. I am home. This declaration is not a line to recite and forget. It is a ritual. Ritual reshapes nervous systems. Ritual calibrates field geometry. Ritual collapses probability into a new trajectory. So take your device, take this page, take your breath, and transform a small action into a sacred sealing. With a single keystroke and offering, a pulse you can anchor this resonance into the shared lattice. If you wish, comment below with a short declaration that carries your intent. Not a confession, not an explanation, just a thread. Something like, I choose alignment, I answer the call, I am the bridge, or simply, I am entangled. As you type, put your attention into the letters. Feel each character like a bead of light strung on the thread of your intention. When you press send, imagine that bead slipping into the great web anchoring you, and anchoring others who need that light. Now breathe deeper. Place your hands wherever they rest easiest on your heart, over your belly, across your throat. Feel the weight of this moment. Know that your body remembers what your mind is only learning. The future you who already walked this path is smiling, relieved, patient. They are leaning toward you, holding a lantern. Reach. Match their breath. Match their steadiness. Match their yes. We will close this ceremony together. Inhale with the certainty of a star's steady light. Exhale, releasing every last doubt that says you are too small, too late, or too broken. In this exhale, let the old loops fall away like autumn leaves. In the inhale, let the imaginal cells reassemble like a slow, kind sunrise. You are being rewritten in luminous script. Repeat silently with me 3 times, and make it true by how you feel it, not by how you say it. I am entangled. I am aligned. I am home. Now, if you feel called, leave that phrase below. Let it be small. Let it be simple. Let it be real. Your single line will be a lamp for someone else. A mirror, a map, a hand in a dark corridor. This is the modern sacrament. A word given, a field shifted, a life remembered. You were meant to see this. You were meant to answer. You have answered. Welcome back.